we're still unpacking and analysing the 2025 matric pass rate. It's a record 88% pass rate with over 900,000 candidates. It is a major milestone. We're talking about greater access to schooling. The number of bachelor passes also increased, but there are key warning signs that still remains, particularly in what's called gateway subjects. Only 34% of candidates wrote pure maths. Just 64% of those learners passed maths. We have fewer distinctions in maths, physical science and accounting than last year. So the concern is a higher pass rate not necessarily translating into the mastery of maths. Only about 1 in 5 learners score about 50% in maths. We have fewer and fewer acquiring marks required for a STEM degree. And we received a message yesterday from a listener, reflecting on the results and asking whether or not there is too big of a chasm between the subjects of math literacy and pure maths. Should we be looking at either saying everyone does pure maths, or is there validity in the idea of some sort of intermediate maths track? Why do so many South African learners struggle with mathematics in the first place? Joining me now is Dr. Bruce May, Senior Mathematics Lecturer at the University of the Western Cape. Good morning, Bruce. Really appreciate your time. When we talk about a maths crisis, is this a crisis of the ability of learners, or is this a crisis in how maths is taught and maybe even assessed in South Africa?
Good morning, Lester, and good morning to the listeners. Let me answer it this way. I don't think that the learners don't have the ability. I think they do have the ability. I just think there's so many factors that contribute to them not being able to perform to their potential. All right. Now, there can be many factors that impact their performance, such as socioeconomic factors, etc., etc. However, for me, there are two that are the most important. Right. In mathematics, foundational knowledge is very, very important. Right. So basically, what that means is that whenever you introduce a new concept, and that concept will be building on previous knowledge, right? So if that foundational knowledge is not developed to the required level, what then happens is that the learner would then struggle to develop their what we call conceptual understanding. So let me just expand a little bit on that. In mathematics, you have two types of knowledge that are very important. That is procedural knowledge and conceptual knowledge. So the whole idea in mathematics is to develop that, right? But now what happens is that it's general knowledge that the curriculum is very, very packed and the teachers struggle to get through the whole curriculum in a year. So what happens is the teacher is practically forced to continue with new topics, although the teacher might be aware that majority of the learners are struggling with certain concepts, right? So what happens is the teacher then goes on and the learner do not develop to the required level conceptual understanding for that particular topic. And so what happens is that when they write stuff, we say, the learners don't understand, etc., and they don't have the ability and all that. But you must understand that these two knowledge types goes together, procedural knowledge and conceptual knowledge. The procedural knowledge is just basically them writing the steps, so to speak, out, which then informs the teacher as to their understanding, right? So the main problem for me would be that it is that the packed curriculum that then forces the teacher to go on. The other factor that I think plays a major role in this is the following. Again, because the curriculum is so packed, we have what we call a retention problem. So you can imagine that in any given lesson or any sequence of lessons, what happens is the teacher covers so much ground, right? So what happens is the learner has to remember many, many things. And in June, the learner have to write over the previous 2 terms what the learner has learned. And so what happens is the learners forget. The teachers now, therefore, have to devise plans to let learners practice to enhance their retention and all that, and they struggle to develop things like that. I have ideas about that, but I don't think that is the topic for now.
Bruce, I'm going to be honest. I flunked maths on the lower grade in matric. This is half by design because I had taken extra subjects. I passed comfortably with exemption, but I was not interested in mathematics as a young person because I did not see the utility of mathematics. I'm now older, I've read a lot more, understand the world a bit more, understand what problem solving mean using logic. And now I appreciate even the concepts of pure maths. But maths is one of those subjects where you need a foundational basis. And are we telling young people this is what, going up from simple arithmetic to equations and beyond that, this is the utility for mathematics? And I don't think we've hit that market of explaining. I figured it out after my 20s, in my 30s, when I started reading more and watching documentaries. Oh, this is why mathematics is important. And I wish I'd learned that when I was 14 years old.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have experience like that. I think what you are referring to is the fact that mathematics is what we call a gateway subject, right? So if learners and perhaps parents also understand that this subject opens so many doors, right, in terms of careers, etc., right? In the schooling system, there's always this thing of the blame game. Let me just put that out there because I think this is a very important point. If you go to the high schools will blame the primary schools that, look, they didn't do their work properly, etc., etc. If you go to the universities, they blame the schools that they are not doing their part, etc., etc. But in the end, I think for the country to progress, and especially in this era of AI, we need learners that are very, very competent in mathematics, right? And if we don't succeed in that, that will have, there will be other issues that are downstream from that, right? So a lot of our economic development is dependent on that because we are supposed to kind of prepare the next generation to deal with the issues that are now becoming apparent because of the introduction of AI, etc., etc.
Let's talk about the difference between maths lit and pure maths. And many people, parents, don't necessarily know the difference between maths, pure maths, and math literacy. In fact, there's a messenger from Mornay who asks, please ask your guests whether old maths standard grade is the same as current maths literacy.
No, definitely not. Mathematical literacy has it doesn't have the abstract mathematical ideas, right? So let me explain about that. So the idea with mathematical literacy is just application, where they would, for example, do some financial calculations, etc., etc. But the idea is not to develop those abstract mathematical ideas that are actually very, very important in so many different careers. Right? If you go into commerce, for example, calculus plays a huge role. If you want to do chartered accounting, then one of the courses that you are supposed to, mathematics courses that you are supposed to do must include calculus. You see, so there's no getting around that. Mathematical literacy, though, do not have that part, so it doesn't have the robust mathematical ideas that learners have to struggle through in order to have a deeper understanding of the mathematics. So it is not the same as the standard grade mathematics. It's something completely different.
So has it just become some sort of blunt sorting tool between and this is often what schools do, in that they sort and then they consult with parents and they maybe make some strong suggestions. Look, this is not a pure maths candidate. We maybe advise you go to math literacy. Has that divide become now some sort of just a simple sorting tool between those who will achieve and those who will achieve less, and is that the right is that the right strategy to develop a culture of the understanding, the application of mathematics, as you rightfully say, would be key to future economic growth for this country?
Yeah. So let me start like this. The what happens is that mathematics is called, like I already said, a gateway subjects, right? But what happens at the school level is that, and I don't want to say all the schools are doing this, right? Because I don't have data that I can quote to support this. But what happens is we have this gatekeeping function. So what happens is the schools are under pressure to increase the pass rates. If they don't increase the pass rates, then they come under scrutiny of the department, etc., etc. And what happens is there's lots of repercussions for them. So what happens is the principal realizes, okay, these learners, they score less than 40%, etc. in grade 9, and then they strongly advise them not to do mathematics, right? Because they know that the learners will struggle with mathematics, etc. And like I've mentioned in the beginning, how the teachers struggle to get through the curriculum, etc. On the other hand, the learners themselves know that, look, mathematics is difficult. The teachers know because every year there's this diagnostic report that comes out that explains how the learners of that matric year has performed, etc. Yeah. And so what happens is everybody is aware, look, the pass rate for mathematics is low and there's a problem in that. For me, that is not a true reflection of, firstly, the ability of our learners, and secondly, of what the schooling system can do.
Dr. Bruce, may have to leave it there, but really, really appreciate your time. Senior mathematics lecturer at the University of the Western Cape.